Hi, this is Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Interarbor Solutions, and you're listening to BriefingsDirect. Our next business intelligence trends discussion explores the growing role of data integration in a multi-cloud world. Just as enterprises seek to gain more insights value from their copious data, they're also finding their applications, services, and raw data spread across a hybrid and public clouds continuum. Raw data is also piling up closer to the edge, in factory floors, hospital rooms, and anywhere that digital business and consumer activities exist. Stay with us now as we examine the latest strategies for uniting and governing all of data, wherever it resides. By doing so, businesses are enabling rapid and actionable analysis, as well as entirely new levels of human-to-augmented-intelligence collaboration. To learn more about the foundational capabilities that lead to a total data access exploitation, we're now joined by Dan Potter, Vice President of Product Marketing at Attunity, a division of Click. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, Dana. Great to be with you again.
We're glad to have you. Dan, what are some of the business trends that are forcing a new approach to data integration?
Well, it's all being driven by analytics. The analytics world has gone through some very interesting phases of late. IoT, streaming data from operational systems. You see a lot of AI and machine learning, predictive and preventative kinds of analytics, real-time streaming analytics. So it's this analytics that is really driving the data integration requirements, so that this changing analytics has changed the way in which data is being stored and managed for analytics. So things like cloud data warehouses, data lakes, streaming infrastructure like Kafka, all of these things are really a response to the business demand for new styles of analytics. So as the analytics are driving the data management changes, the way in which the data is being integrated and moved needed to change as well. So it's no longer good enough. The traditional approaches to data integration, batch processing, more ETL and scripted-oriented integration, all of that is changing. It's all moving to a much more agile, more real-time style of integration, and it's being driven by things like the movement to the cloud and needing to move more data in greater volume and greater variety into data lakes. And how do I shape that data and make it analytic ready? With all of these movements, there's been new challenges and new technologies, and the pace of innovation is really accelerating, and the challenges are growing. So again, we see the digital transformation and the move to the cloud has really changed the landscape dramatically. And with that came great opportunities for us as a modern data integration vendor, but also great challenges for companies that are going through this transition.
Well, data integration has been something companies have been doing since probably the original relational database kicked around. But it seems to me that the core competency of managing the integration of data is probably more important than ever as a core competency for businesses. Do you agree?
Yeah, totally agree. And done right in the future, you don't want to have to focus on data integration. The whole goal here is to try to automate as much as possible. Because the data sources are changing. You've got proliferation of NoSQL databases, graph databases. It's no longer just an Oracle database and a relational database. You've got all different kinds of data. You've got different technologies that are being used to transform that data. So things like Spark have emerged of late, and different other transformation technologies that are more real-time oriented, and different targets where this data is being transformed and moved into. So it's hard for organizations to keep up the skill set, and you don't want them to. So we really want to move to much more of an automated process of data integration. And the more that we can achieve that, I think the more valuable all of this becomes. You're not spending time with the mundane data integration, you're spending time on the analytics, and that's where the value comes from.
But an important thing to be able to do, especially now that Attunity is part of Click, you're an essential component of a larger undertaking, moving towards data ops. So tell me why the data migration strengths translate into a larger strategic value when you combine it with Click.
So I love that you call it data ops, because data ops really resonates for the pain that we're setting out to address. Data ops is about bringing the same discipline that DevOps has brought to software development, but now bringing that to data and data integration for analytics. So how do we accelerate and remove the gap between IT that is charged with providing analytics-ready data to the business and all of the various business and analytics requirements? That's where data ops comes in. And data ops is really It's technology, but that's just a part of it. It's as much or more people and process, along with enabling technology and modern integration technology like Attunity. So we're trying to solve a problem that's been persistent, you're right, ever since the advent of the first bit of data hit a hard drive. Data integration challenges will always be there, but getting smarter about the technology that you apply, the discipline that you use to try to not boil the ocean with every initiative. How do you get much more collaboration between what the business users really need and automate the delivery of analytics-ready data, knowing full well that the requirements are going to change often, and so you can be much more responsive to those business changes, bringing in additional data sets, preparing that data in different ways and in different formats so it can be consumed with different analytics technologies. That's really the big problem that we're trying to solve, and being part of Click gives us a much broader perspective on some of these pains as it relates to the analytics world, but it also gives us a much broader portfolio of data integration technologies. The Click Data Catalyst product is a perfect complement to what Attunity does. So, our role in data integration has been to help organizations move data in real time. So as data is changing on these source systems, we capture those changes. We move that data to where it's needed, like a cloud or data lake or data warehouse. We prepare and shape that data for analytics. But where Click Data Catalyst comes in is, how do I catalog this data and make that data available to business users so they can find and discover the data and govern that data? And if data needs to be further prepared and enriched or create derivative data sets, how do I do that easily? So it's a perfect marriage in the data integration world, bringing together the strength of Attunity together with Click Data Catalyst. We have, I think, the most purposed fit modern data integration technology to solve these analytics challenges, and doing it in a way that really fits well to a data ops discipline.
And I mentioned in my setup that we want to try to get as much data, structured, unstructured, information, what have you. It used to be a function of, okay, we've got different types of data, we've got different warehouse platforms, but now we've got another level of heterogeneity, and that's cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, edge. We don't even know what's going to be coming in 2 or 3 years. I'm sure there's going to be more options. How does that relate to how you can deal as an agile organization with the speed and scale and this diversity of complexity?
Well, a couple of things. Well, you're making the argument why you need a different approach for a different style of integration technology to support the topologies that are very, very different. And also understanding that what the ecosystem looks like today, it's going to be radically different 2 years from now. The pace of innovation just within the cloud platform technologies, you look at the new databases and transformation engines and orchestration engines, it proliferates. And now you have multiple cloud vendors, and it's great reason for organizations to be able to use multi-cloud, use the best of the technologies or approaches that work for your organization or your work group or your division. So you need that. You need to prepare yourself for that, and modern integration approach definitely helps you to do that. Now, there's also some interesting technologies that will help organizations provide some of this agility, and one of those is Kafka. So Kafka is a way to move data in real time and to be able to make it easy to consume that data as it's flowing. We see that as an important piece of the evolving data infrastructure fabric. So at Attunity, we create data streams from systems like mainframes or SAP applications or relational databases. These are systems that weren't built to stream data. We stream enable that data, we publish it into a Kafka stream, and that provides great flexibility for organizations, whether they want to process that data in real time and maybe doing real-time analytics like fraud detection. It's an efficient way to publish that data to multiple systems, but it also provides them with the agility to be able to deliver that data and have people consume and find that data easily. So there's a lot of new evolving approaches to doing this, and having that mentality that says, I need to make sure that whatever decision I make today is going to future-proof me. We talk about data in motion as being important, but architectures are in motion as well. So setting yourself up right and thinking about that agility and building for agility on day one is absolutely essential.
And that's why it's my take that it's a core competency that you have to have, because this isn't just going to be, okay, we figured it out, it's done, move on. This is going to be an ongoing evolution. The ecosystem is going to continue to proliferate, and you need to be on top of it. Let's go to look at the typical enterprise, if there's such a thing, at least maybe from the perspective of dealing with this complexity. What do you see as the top challenges companies have, and maybe it is more people and process than technology, for getting masterful at this ongoing challenge of getting control over data so that they can then analyze it properly and get the big payoff?
So I think the most important competency is more on the enterprise architecture side than it is on the people who traditionally built ETL scripts and integration routines. And I think that's the piece that you want to automate. The real core competency is, how do I define a modern data architecture? And again, thinking about building for agility and building so I can embrace the changing technology and the changing landscape. And it may be, you may have all your eggs in one cloud vendor today, but you certainly want to set yourself up so you can evolve and push processing to the most efficient place to process it, to the best technology for the best fit for the kinds of analytics or operational workloads. So I think that's the real competency that organizations should be focused on. And we as an integration vendor are trying to solve the gap of not relying upon technical people to do all of this integration work in a manual way that's time-consuming and error-prone and costly. Let's automate as much as we can, and let's really help you build the right data architecture for the future.
Another thing that's fascinating to me, Dan, in this era of artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence, machine learning, is that we're not just creating systems that will get you to that analytic opportunity for intelligence. We're employing that intelligence every step of the way as we get there, so that it's tactical and strategic. It's a process and it's a result. So how does artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence, machine learning come to help automate and streamline the process of getting your data lined up properly, and so that you can focus your people and your skills at that higher abstraction of architecture?
Yeah, I think this is one of the emerging areas for integration technology, is how do we, our focus initially has been on how do we prepare the data, make it available for machine learning initiatives. So we work with vendors like Databricks, who have really at the forefront of processing using a highly performant Spark engine and processing data for data science and machine learning and AI initiatives. And that's really the initial focus for us as a vendor. We need to, in turn, say, how do we apply cognitive engines, things like Click can bring to the fore, and apply that within our own technology and get smarter about the patterns of integration that organizations are deploying so we can further automate. So that's really the next wave for us.
So you're not just the president, you're a client.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. from someone who's follically challenged, the both of us.
And can you give us any more maybe tidbits? I know you have to be careful about future plans, but is there anything that people should be aware of how intelligence will come to bear on this problem that will help them?
Well, I think if done right, and we plan on doing it right, it should be transparent to them. This is all about automation. And automation done right, it should just be intuitive. Going back 15 years when we first brought out replication technology at Attunity, the whole idea was, let's automate and abstract all the complexity. So you literally drag, here's my source, here's my target, make it happen. Do the mapping for me, do the routing for me, handle all the errors for me. It's that same elegance. That's where the intelligence comes in. Make it so intuitive that you're not seeing all the magic that's happening under the covers. We've followed that same design principle in our products over the years, and as the technologies are getting more complex, it's getting harder for us to do that. So applying machine learning and AI becomes even more important to us. So that's really the future for us. You'll continue to see, as we automate more of these processes, all of that is happening under the covers.
And of course, this will be something that will impact the infrastructure up and down the stack. So I wouldn't be surprised if a year or so we're talking about how AI ops and data ops can aid and abet one another, but that'll be a podcast for another day. We've talked at a kind of an abstract level, Dan. Are there any examples? Maybe you can name the companies, maybe you can describe the use cases where you see organizations that are a bit on the bleeding edge, that understand the data integration requirements and core competency and how important that's going to be, that look through the lens of architecture at this and that are getting some results. Any way that we could put some concrete examples in the eyes and ears of our listeners and readers?
So I'll give you one that I use often because they were one of the early innovators in applying automation to their data warehouse initiative, and that's Zurich Insurance. So Zurich, we're moving to a more modern data warehouse to better meet the analytic requirements, and they realized that they needed a better way to do it than how they've done it in the past. Traditional enterprise data warehousing employs a lot of people building a lot of ETL scripts. It tends to be very brittle. When source systems change, you don't know about it until the scripts break or until the business users complain that there's holes in their graphs. So they turned to Attunity to automate that process of integrating the data and moving it in real time and automatically structuring the data warehouse. Their ability to respond to business users, it's a fraction of what it was in the past. They had planned on having 45-day cycles. They reduced that to 2-day cycles in updating and building out new data marts for users. Their agility is off the charts compared to the traditional way of doing it. And for them, it's all about, again, how to better meet the needs of the business users through automation. They're one example, and as organizations are more moving to the cloud, finding ways to automate those processes, particularly in a data lake. One of the things that we see, we got lots of customers who are embracing the notion of a data lake, and it's really easy to put data into a data lake. It's really hard to derive value from the data lake and reconstruct the data to make it analytics ready. So if you think about taking transactions from a mainframe, and I can dump all of those things into a data lake, which is wonderful. But now how do I create any analytic insight? How do I ensure that all of those updated files that I'm just dumping into the lake, how do I reconstruct this into a queryable data set? The way people have done it in the past is manually. I've got scripters using Pig and other languages to try to reconstruct it. We fully automate that process. And companies who employ Attunity technology to do that, it's really had tremendous impact on showing and demonstrating value from these, what are big investments in data lakes. Another area that we see will continue to yield results.
Now, Attunity became part of Qlik officially just in the springtime. Are there any clients that you're aware of that might, as a use case or as a named example, demonstrate the combination of 2 + 2 = 5 when it comes to Attunity plus the Qlik Catalyst catalog, and maybe also moving in towards having that analytics total data environment pay off?
So it's still early days for us. This is my first week as a Qlik employee. We look at our install base, and there's a lot of overlap between who we sell to. We sell to some very large organizations, as does Qlik. The BI teams and the data integration teams, in many cases, are separate and distinct. DataOps kind of brings those together. So I think the future for us is we start to take the Qlik Data Catalyst and making that the nexus of where the business side and the IT side kind of come together. And in this whole data ops approach, it's that catalog and extending it with collaboration where the magic happens. So business users can more easily find the data. They can send the requirements back to the data engineering team as they need them. But again, applying AI and machine learning to that, what are the patterns that we're seeing from the analytics side, and how do we better apply that to the data that's required and automate the delivery and preparation of that data for different business users? I think that's the future. And I think it's going to be very interesting a year from now, being a part of the Qlik family and really bringing together the BI and data integration side from our joint customers. I think we're going to see some really interesting results.
Well, as this very exciting part of the next generation towards a third generation of BI kicks in, what should organizations be doing to get prepared? If you were to tell the architect who's starting to think data ops rather than just IT legacy and cloud architecture and enterprise architecture, what should they be doing to put them in an advantageous position to be really able to exploit and leverage this when it's available, when the market matures?
Well, first they should be talking to Attunity. And by the way, it's something we get engaged early and often in many of these organizations. And the hardest job in IT right now is enterprise architects, because there's so many moving parts. But we have wonderful conversations because at Attunity, we've been doing this for a long time, and we speak the same language, and we bring a lot of knowledge and experience from other organizations to bear. And it's one of the reasons why we've got deep strategic relationships with many of these enterprise architects and on the IT side of the house. So you should definitely, they should be thinking about what's the next wave and how do we best prepare for that. And I would say foundationally, moving to more real-time streaming integration is an absolute requirement. You can take our word for it. You can go talk to Dana and all the other analysts and other peers around the need for real-time data and streaming architectures and how important that is going to be in the next wave. So preparing for that, and again, thinking about the agility and the automation that's going to get them the desired results. Because if they're not preparing for that now, they're going to be left behind. And if they're left behind, the business is left behind. And it is a very competitive world. And organizations are competing on data and analytics. So the faster that you can deliver the right data, make it analytic ready, the faster and better decisions you can make, and the more successful you'll be. So it really is a do it or die kind of proposition. And that's why data integration, it's strategic. It's unlocking the value of this data. And if you do it right, you're going to set yourself up for long-term success.
Well, very good. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. You've been listening to a sponsored BriefingsDirect discussion on the role of data integration in a multi-cloud world. And we've learned how the latest strategies for uniting and governing all of data wherever it resides enables rapid and actionable analysis, as well as will lead to new levels of human-to-augmented intelligence collaboration. So a big thank you to our guest. We've been here with Dan Potter, Vice President of Product Marketing at Attunity, a division of Click. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dana. Always a pleasure.
And a big thank you as well to our audience for joining this BriefingsDirect Business Intelligence Trends discussion. I am Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host throughout this series of Click-sponsored BriefingsDirect interviews. Thanks again for listening. Please pass this along to your IT community and do come back next time.